Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 164, which is called The Forbidden Jutsu of Death. And overall, I actually thought this was a pretty good episode of Boruto. They've been a little not great recently, but this one was definitely sort of a return to form in that I felt like it was a pretty well animated episode. The fight that we got was actually, interesting. It had sort of multiple stages to it. They had, character stuff involved in it with Mugino and sort of Boruto being a little bit at odds with each other, and that sort of came around full circle in the episode. And in a way, that's all you want. I think Boruto, when it has those episodes that aren't that great, the main problem is that there's not even that much character stuff in it. And so at least this one had that core of sort of getting to know Mugino and his approach better, and the team bonding even more over the course of this relatively long arc that we've been on. And then, ending it, I suppose, with the return to the Omoi Deepa fight and then doing some big stuff on that side of things. It definitely delivered, even if, the episode was very much just another roadblock in the place of getting to where the plot is actually going. That, of course, we're still after the Hashirama cell, but we have to get through this fight, get through this barrier before we get there. I do think we're very quickly going to get through the quadruplets, and immediately Deepa is going to become much more the focus of the arc as we get towards the end. So it looks like potentially next week's episode might be the resolution with the Land of Haze Shinobi, but we'll see. There might be an episode or two still left, but it definitely seems we're on the verge of making that transition between from them being the main villain to Deepa now, I suppose, getting to meet everyone. So the title of the episode, Forbidden Jutsu of Death, obviously refers to the jutsu that the one of the quadruplets who stays behind does. So he sacrifices his life. I think the full name of the jutsu is Forbidden Jutsu, ephemeral life. So smoke comes out of his body. He walks forward a bit. He has a green sort of jutsu pattern kind of spiral up his body, and then he basically turns into that mist, as well as into sort of a kind of life force, a jewel that becomes the center point of the spirit basically that he summoned. Now obviously Naruto hasn't particularly gone massively in depth into this side of jutsus, in that there's only a few characters who have jutsus that are like this, and I did appreciate that they mentioned a few of them, most notably of course the Reaper Death Seal, which of course the third Hokage used. They mentioned that this is a similar style of jutsu to that, in that you're kind of summoning a spirit from the Naruto equivalent of the spirit world effectively, and in this case it is sort of allowed to exist in the physical world here because of the sacrifice made by the shinobi here. So it immediately set up the idea of, to defeat this thing, you're going to have to destroy the jewel at the center, which they did. They cracked it in the middle of the episode, and then it was fully destroyed at the end, and that's how they dealt with it. But yeah, interesting design. I think it made for actually a pretty good fight, because it wasn't this incredibly detailed thing, and so because it was just it was kind of just based on shapes, I think you could tell that maybe the animators were actually able to do quite a lot with it to make for a decent animation fight. So the design probably actually helped us to get a pretty solid bit of action in this episode, where otherwise maybe it wouldn't have been as in depth. So the reveal of what this thing can do is that, one, for its size, it is surprisingly fast, and it can also absorb chakra to heal any wounds that it has, and just absorb chakra in general. So that's what they do at the start of the fight. Boruto seemingly gets the advantage on it, but it catches him and absorbs his chakra, and Boruto is only saved from being killed by Konohamaru arriving at the last second to take its arm off with a Rasengan. And this sort of sets up the idea of the episode of because of that, Mugino once again sort of reiterates that he doesn't have a lot of faith in Konohamaru's team. He thinks that they sort of like fly off the handle a little bit too easily. They're too reckless. And Boruto's just kind of like, it wasn't that bad what I did, was it? Like we were fighting the thing. I got caught, what's the problem? And obviously by the end of the episode we get to the point that Mugino is this very, intelligent shinobi who can think things out, make the split-second decisions. But, as Boruto points out, he's not the best communicator. He sort of keeps stuff to himself. He doesn't fully clarify his plan to everyone. And so he sort of comes across at times a little bit reckless because he doesn't include everyone in the plan. And if not for Konohamaru being there and sort of understanding Mugino, because he knows him, there would have been like a sort of misunderstanding about what exactly Mugino did. In that, like, they all note how, like, that was pretty impressive how he was able to immediately switch the plan from being the more safe option of just trying to break through the outside of the barrier to, no, we have to commit and win this fight, and win this fight with the least amount of injuries possible. So, in this case, through sort of, thinking it through, sort of putting himself at risk is the safest option for the whole team. And it was a cool moment. Like, he gets to go in, show his just raw strength and, skill by basically just lifting, like, kind of like fireman's carrying basically the spirit and holding him on his back as it leaves him wide open for Boruto and Konohamaru's attack, which I think was meant to show that he ultimately did have faith in the rest of them when it came down to these situations, in that he trusted Konohamaru and Boruto to deliver on the attack, as well as Sarada and Mitsuki to supply the backup support just as well. And then similarly, while they were executing the plan to try and break through the barrier, he did also trust them to defend them basically at the barrier, which they did, and the team actually worked really, really well. Sarada gave the order, switched to this plan, and they were able to crack the jewel, which I think was pretty cool. Like, they didn't want the kind of younger members of Team 7 to just finish off the creature on their own. So instead they cracked the jewel, and they kind of distracted it enough to where it missed that there was a crack forming in the barrier, but then it jumps right over them, and so, they're not, Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki aren't shown to be, like, inept in this at all. It's just that, whoa, that thing just showed something that it had never done before, and that's when they switched over to the Mugino plan to take it out for good, which they did. And I think it was a pretty, like I said, pretty solid fight, well animated. They didn't do like a massive amount of like animation with regards to, say, like different jutsus, in that, like, we're still wondering, like, what is the full extent of like Konohamaru's power levels in terms of what jutsus does he have when he goes full on all out. What does he have? Because obviously Naruto, just as a series in general, loves the Rasengan finishing blows, but Konohamaru has to have a few more jutsus than just that. But either way, pretty solid stuff there. We then cut back to the Amoy versus Deepa fight, where we find out that the other two Cloud Shinobi are actually still alive. They weren't killed in the last episode, but then the threat basically comes in because Deepa has basically won this fight. He basically offers the deal to either side of this. Like, Amoy, unless you tell me, I'll kill those two. You two, unless you tell me, I'll kill Amoy. And that ends up being what works. Those two can't stand to see Amoy taken out just to hide this piece of information, so they reluctantly are forced to reveal the Land of Haze connection to all of this. But Deepa, like he said at the start, he's going to keep Amoy alive, but he kills the other two right in front of Amoy. So, definitely getting across, like, okay, here's our villain here. He's out to kill people, and not just these random characters that we've seen at the start, but no, these characters here who are important to Amoy. He leaves Amoy alive, which is important because, like, I suppose he'll play some role, I suppose, as we get to the end of this. I don't think he's probably done within this arc, but it creates, a very sort of personal connection here of just like he's now killed shinobi that we've seen in episodes, and it highlights what he's willing to do to get what he wants. Again, it doesn't really highlight the full extent of what his power is, in that he just seems to be really strong taijutsu and have like super strong skin that can't be cut or whatever. We'll see exactly how they explain it, but still, he's being built up quite well, and like I said, I think he's going to be transitioned to being the main villain, and I think the Haze Shinobi are going to, within the next episode or two, be pretty much wrapped up. I suppose our characters will regain possession of the Hashirama cell, and then it will become a battle of Deepa versus everyone here. Now, the big thing is obviously then going to be Deepa, I suppose, does he get killed off? And this is the real setup for the next manga arc, but we'll see exactly what happens. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.